Hi, we're the Ocean-Going Robots ECE Capstone team. Our team consists of Malachi Fisher, Grayson Lewis, Miles Drake, and Samuel Barton. Our project is to develop a system to measure wave swell amplitude, direction, and period from a Slocum G3 glider as it floats on the surface of the ocean while consuming a minimal amount of power. Goals from the previous weeks. Previously, we set out to complete our Block 2 checkoffs and to complete the design and fabrication of our PCBs. Since the last video, I have managed to get the SD firmware block checked off. The firmware block included functions to format the SD card, to read the SD card, and to write to the SD card. My goals for the upcoming future is to finalize the SD card file format. That's what our glider program is going to be reading in, the format of that file. Continue working on documentation tasks, and to assist with the board bring up.
These past couple weeks, I got my second block checked off. So for that, I wrote and tested firmware to manage two different UARTs on our STM32. I implemented a ring buffer library so that we could receive inputs from the UARTs using an interrupt rather than polling. And I also wrote several high-level functions for sending data and receiving and parsing data from the UART. Got that block successfully checked off. And I also worked with Sam to design and order our system PCB. Upcoming work is to work with the team to integrate the various firmware libraries that we've created over these past few weeks and start working on our main firmware program. We've got to assemble and test our PCB, and we've got to prepare documentation and testing procedures for system verification 1. So this is the PCB that Sam and I worked on, and we got it ordered. This is a 3D rendering from Altium. Go to the next slide. This is the PCB as it showed up today. So we're going to be working on building that up and checking that we got everything right coming up soon.
So the progress that I've made over the past few weeks was I primarily focused on finishing the microcontroller block schematic and designing a test PCB for that. The primary pieces of that whole design were basically came down to the bypass capacitors that were used in STM's design suggestions for how they want you to lay out the microcontroller. Other than that, I made sure to use all the connections that we're going to be using for talking to the SD card, the Xsense accelerometer, the power management block, as well as 2 UART ports, one which will be going back to the science computer and the glider, and then one that goes to the PC application. Other than those connections and the capacitors was really just busting out other headers for like programming, which we're using a JTAG port, and then just some other test jumpers to connect the multiple VDD options out there to VDD if we need, or to use the other voltages if we also decide to use that. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to test what I've designed as I haven't gotten the PCBs in hand yet. There's been a big issue with shipping and everything going on, so hopefully I get that soon. But yeah, fingers crossed. And then other than that, I also worked with Grayson in designing the system PCB, as you said earlier. We've received it, and then in the next couple of weeks, we'll be building it, testing it, and hoping that it works.
Since last video, I was able to successfully prototype the power switching block. I built it out on a breadboard and everything worked fine, although the output voltages were slightly lower than I'd hoped. It'll still work for the system, it's just not ideal. Anyway, I got that block checked off and I put both my block schematics into Altium for the final PCB. After we got the PCB shipped, I realized there was a little error in the power switching schematic that we'll need to fix by just soldering some resistors in differently. To do in the future is to help with the board bring up and main firmware implementation and to run some more tests on the power switching block to see if I can get that output voltage a little bit higher. As for the block 2 checkoff, all the blocks except for the microcontroller block were successfully checked off. And the microcontroller block was not checked off due to what Sam was saying about the PCBs not coming in the mail.
So our goals for next week is to finish the first draft of our project wiki, complete the system verification assignment that's already posted on Canvas, that's due this Sunday, begin assembling and bringing up the PCBs that we do have, and prepare for the first steps of the system verification.